Beep, beep, beep. How you doing, good peeps? Welcome to the court of the EDI Digester. It's another glorious day in the fight. Okay. Got a terrible cough again. So, I need your help. First off, I need to get these places filled on the March Warrior teacher. It's slow. So, I put everything in the header of my Twitter profile, but if you could give it a share, I'd be really grateful. Other than that, let's crack on. I've got something here for you from the Daily Mail from the 3rd of February, the Daily Fail, as I like to call it, from the 3rd of February. And it's an interesting piece on gay teenagers, right? Okay, so I think that's really important that we talk about this because this is something that's happening and is very, very worrying. The title is insanely long. I don't know what the Daily Mail are playing at, but this is the title, right? Just the title. Gay teens who couldn't come to terms with their sexuality share how they removed their breasts and genitals in false hope that becoming transgender would cure them as concerns mount that gender-affirming care for children is homophobic. Right, that's a hell of a, Daily Mail. Do better, right? How would you fit that in a tagline, right? You wouldn't, right? But it's to the point. It's talking exactly about what they're discussing here. I mean, they say growing concerns. There aren't growing concerns. Absolutely. Gender-affirming care, the idea of trans, the idea of a gender identity is pure, undiluted homophobia. Those that represent those things, i.e. those that LARP about in public, fetishistic men or confused kids, right, are the flag, the poster boys and girls for a homophobic, misogynistic belief system. It's not mounting concerns. It's a simple fact. It's a fact, right? If you believe in gender identity, you cannot believe, or you obviously are denying the reality of sex and sexuality, of which there are three. Homosexual, heterosexual, and bisexual. That's it. There are only three. There's nothing else. Okay? Doesn't matter what you could identify as what you like. I don't care what you identify as. I honestly don't care. Apart from the fact that I might wish that you identified as who got an early death. Who was a communist they threw in the canal in the early 1900s? I can't remember who that was. Harriet someone. Somebody will look it up. Right. Several young people who transitioned to teenagers in a bid to cope with their sexuality have spoken to the New York Times. Now, this is interesting. New York Times doing this kind of article. Back in America again. Doing that kind of article. They said all they wished their surgeons or those prescribing hormone therapy had asked more questions about their mental health and motivations. Since the Dutch study, going back right years ago, 70s, 80s, 90s, going right back, we've known this is all about homophobia. We've known all that time and still they pushed it, the Beaumont Society, and their ridiculously homophobic, LARPing, gusset-fumbling men. Gay teenagers disturbed by their own sexuality have described deciding life would be better as a transgender person and undergoing surgery, only to regret it several years later. From what I've seen and discussions I've had with some of the detransitioners, it looks like it's between 8 and 13 years. So between 8 and 13 years after they take the original disastrous step of social transition, that's where it starts, as iatrogenic. So once you start that, it's likely you're going to do the rest. Then that's about 8 to 13 years is when regret occurs. So we really haven't even seen the beginning of this yet. As, so to speak, the turd is not quite yet visible in the reality bum. But give it 8 to 13 years and it'll be, ready to taper. Do you know why turds are tapered? I've often asked myself the question. So I did some scientific studies and found out that it's so your arse don't shut with a bang. Don't know why I thought of that. The young people said that in hindsight, drastic surgical operations were offered with insufficient discussion or thought. That's because the cult doesn't do that. Their stories emerged as concern grows that so-called gender-affirming care for children is homophobic, as it permanently changes the bodies of children and young adults who are not transgender, but merely trying to come to terms with their sexuality. Now, there's no such thing as transgender, by the way. Okay, so there's people who are not transgender. Well, there's no such thing. It's not that they're not transgendered. It's that they're not mentally ill. Or they've been caught by a cult and a social contagion, and they're not. It's not that they're mentally ill. It's that they are educationally deficit. They have an educational deficit. They don't understand it, right? This is so we need to start to teach this early. Here is the dangerous cult, and here's a dangerous cult from years ago that did the same thing called euthanasia. Not euthanasia. What's it called? Eugenics. And here's another dangerous cult called the Scopsy. And here's the thuggy. So we need to teach kids from a young age that cult-like behaviours still exist and are more likely in the technologically drenched world in which we live now than they ever have been. And they are more likely to get bigger quickly, and they're more likely to take over institutions. We need some sort of mechanism to trigger an immediate inquiry when this kind of Lysenkoist, anti-reality, Cartesian dualism, cult behaviours are seen in public organisations that automatically trigger a full investigation of the organisation. That we need to sort of have some kind of trigger that starts that off. One told of being abused online by trans rights activists when, after 5 years living as a trans man, they realised they wanted to revert to being a lesbian woman. Well, they didn't revert to anything. It's after 5 years of pretending to be something they're not, they realised they were doing that and stopped pretending. That's the thing. You've got to frame it right. Another who began transitioning from male to female, nobody can do that, so they didn't begin transitioning. Another who fell for the grift at the age of 15 now campaigns for a ban on surgical intervention under 25 for anyone who has not had psychotherapy first. I would call for a ban for everyone. It needs to stop, the whole thing. End of story. It needs to stop. Yet another, growing up as a lesbian in a conservative community, convinced herself life would be easier as a trans man and had a double mastectomy, only to revert to living as a woman. 6 years later, they didn't live as anything but a woman ever. We've got to start talking about this properly, okay? Studies cited by the New York Times showed that many teenagers wrestling with their identity and sexuality ultimately found peace. 80% of childhood gender dysphoria resolves themselves by puberty. Most of these kids don't have gender dysphoria. There is no way on God's earth they get a diagnosis for gender dysphoria. They haven't got it, right? What they've got is confusion, fear. Yep. They're kids, for God's sake. When it comes to the adults, it's a different thing, because it's all men, mostly over 40 in it. So men are indulging in some sort of sexual fetishistic kink. These kids are just kids, and they're not. They're just distressed, right? The young men that are doing it, if they are doing it, are also probably, heading down the path of being a kinky bugger. Right? Okay, that's probably what's going on once they're 20, 21, or they're distressed about who they are because of some kind of need therapeutically. All right, stop the whole damn thing. That's my result would be, we're done with all this. There will be no such thing anymore. And I would absorb all of the gender crap into straightforward therapy, which begins with the statement: gender identity does exist. This is the root of your confusion. If you cannot address that, we cannot help you. Well, somebody said yesterday there's something about social Darwinism. I know people don't like that idea, but you get people who are so stupid. They do such stupid things, and then people go, well, that's Darwinism in action, selection. What was it called? What was it called? Oh dear. Survival of the fittest. Makes you wonder. An entire generation that's going to have a huge swath of it gone. My generation knows what that's like. The effects of the hormone therapy include infertility, are, however, often irreversible. Casey Emmerich, a 23-year-old woman and detransitioner from Pennsylvania, told the New York Times she saw living as a trans man as a better alternative to being a gay woman. It is homophobic to the core. Okay, but go and have a look, right? Come be a warrior teacher. March. I need more people, otherwise I can't run the damn thing. Let's have you. You have warrior teachers. You have people that want to stand up and come and learn. You don't have to be a teacher, by the way. You just have to want to help, to want to do something. Come and join the rest of the team. I'll see you later, all right? Have a good day.